Okay, let's look at another equation. F of x is the square root of x plus 2. I want to find the domain and range of the square root of x plus 2. Then we need to find the inverse and then the domain and range of the inverse. Now the domain of any square root function, you set the radicand, let me write this over here, x plus 2 greater or equal to 0, which gives us x is greater or equal to negative 2. So my domain is negative 2 to infinity, negative 2 included. The range, since I'm not shifting up or down, is 0 to infinity. Okay? Now we're going to find the inverse. Y equals the square root of x plus 2. Then we switch and we get x equals the square root of y plus 2. Now we need to solve for y. Squaring both sides leaves us with x squared equals y plus 2. And then we're going to subtract from either side, and we have as our inverse x squared minus 2 equals y, or the notation for the inverse is x squared minus 2. Okay? Now I wish to find the domain and range of this inverse, which is a parabola. However, since a parabola that goes over the entire domain from negative 1 to positive 1 is not 1 to 1 and therefore doesn't have an inverse, we need to use the domain and range from our original function. The domain of the square root of x plus 2 becomes the range. So the range is negative 2 to infinity, and the domain becomes the range, which is 0 to infinity. Now real quick, if I want to just graph this, sketch it, I have a square root function that is shifted to the left 2 units. Hence the domain, negative 2 to infinity, looks like that, starting at 0 with our range, so the range is 0 to infinity. Now, I wish to graph the inverse. I gotta get me some other colors. I have f. The inverse is x squared minus 2, and we all know that this is a parabola that is shifted down 2 units, negative 2, and that better be the case, because if this point is negative 2, 0, my inverse has to be 0, negative 2. My domain starts at 0, and since the parabola looks like that. Here we go. So, when we have the domain and range of the original function, the inverse domain and range are switched. And therefore, automatically, we only look at one part of our parabola.